Okay, well, welcome back, everybody. We're going to talk this Democrats of the 1860s. So we did talk about the Civil War. The Democrats will always point to the 1960s civil rights movement while ignoring the one that actually took place in the 1860s, which was driven by the Republican Party. And the Democrats actually fought against it then in the 1860s. There was a Democrat senator, his name was Willard Salisbury, who stated that this bill would allow colored men to sit at the same table as white women. He couldn't have that. The 1960s civil rights movement did nothing more than secure the rights that the equal rights and voting, which had been already put into the Constitution 100 years earlier by the Republican Party. Well, here's a little known fact. More Republicans voted for the 1960s Equal Rights Bill than Democrats did. The Democrats' contribution was that they finally stopped trying to block it by filibustering it, right? 40 acres and a mule. You've heard that a lot. Well, 40 acres and a mule was the Republicans' party post-Civil War to set aside 400,000 acres of confiscated Confederate land. And they began to divide it to give it to freed slaves in pieces of 40 acres and a leftover army mule. Well, then Democratic President Andrew Johnson gave the land back to its former plantation owners. Democrats fought the 13th Amendment, which permanently also abolished slavery, and the Democrats fought against that. Republicans, on the other hand, passed that amendment with 100% support. 77% of Democrats voted against the 13th Amendment. Now, Democrats of today will call for social justice. Yes, yet, they tried to block the 14th Amendment that gave citizenship to blacks and established equality of rights under the law. 94% of Republicans supported that. Every Democrat voted against it. Today's Democrats never tire of lecturing Republicans about racial equality, but it was the Democrats that fought against the 15th Amendment, giving slaves the right to vote. Every Republican voted for it. Every Democrat voted against it. Now, let's not forget Republicans also gave women the right to vote. The suffragettes were almost entirely Republicans. Democrats also opposed women's suffrage. Now, I want to tell you a story about a woman named Carol Swain. She was a black woman and professor at Vanderbilt Law School. Also a Republican who was formerly a Democrat. She is a leading scholar on race relations in America and civil rights. And she tells us the KKK was founded by Nathan Bedford Forrest. He was the first Grand Wizard, and he was also a pledged delegate to the Democratic Convention. Now, the whole purpose of the Democratic Party at that time was to reestablish white supremacy. In 1868, the Democratic Party platform was this, and I quote, "This is a white man's country. Let the white man rule." End of quote. Now, they portrayed Democratic politicians as lily white and black Republican politicians who ran against them as apish and animal-like. It was awful. Blacks were a threat to the Democrats because in several southern states, there were a majority of blacks, and mostly all were registered Republicans. Now, blacks sent many Republicans to the state legislatures, 22 members of Congress at that time. Now, the Democrats, via the KKK, targeted blacks and white Republicans. During the Klan's reign of terror, they killed over 3,000 blacks and over 1,000 white Republicans. Later on, they added Jews to the hate list. The Klan was the military arm of the Democratic Party at that time. I mean, this has been swept under the rug to cover the tracks of the Democratic Party. Now, this violence continued well into the 20th century. Ida B. Wells, she was a black woman, a Republican, and journalist who came long before Rosa Parks. Now, she refused to give up her first-class train seat to a white man on a train and was manhandled and thrown off the train at that time. Now, we don't hear much about her because she was a Republican, and she worked for a Republican newspaper that denounced lynching. And she had witnessed and exposed many lynchings in the press and wrote articles about it routinely. Also, Ida B. Wells, she supported the Second Amendment and wrote that every black home should have a Winchester rifle in it for protection. Now, this was the beginning of the Democrats' war against the Second Amendment, which clearly had racist motives, right? And it carries on today, where they are absolutely against the Second Amendment. I want to talk about Woodrow Wilson, a Democratic president, was a fan of the KKK, and the first movie ever screened in the White House was a racist film portraying the KKK as great proponents for white supremacy. The film led to the rebirth of the Klan in America, and Wilson encouraged his cabinet members to reverse and resist integration of blacks. In 1914, Ida B. Wells and a group of congressmen who were black confronted Wilson about his racist and discriminatory practices, and he tried to convince them that segregation was actually good for black people. Well, she left there saying, "You will be hearing from me." The 1924 Democratic Convention was referred to as the Klan Bake, right? The Klan Bake. Tens of thousands of Klansmen marched on New York City shouting racist slogans and anti-Semitic slogans, and they were burning crosses. Now, FDR, a racist and anti-Semite, in order to pass the New Deal, he allowed racist laws be incorporated to get the Democratic votes who weren't going to vote for the New Deal unless they had those. And essentially what it did is prevented white farmers, or allowed white farmers to stop producing, because many of the blacks working for them were now laid off. They didn't have jobs. And at that time, blacks were either paid in cash or given barter. And they did not end up able to collect Social Security because of the way they were paid. They never paid into it. Well, next, we're going to hear about LBJ, right? LBJ was an absolute racist and anti-Semite, I'm sure, from Texas. But he needed black votes when he ran with Kennedy as the vice president. But, you know, he makes it seem like he was very big on the, helping blacks and things like, but in fact, privately, he was a racist. We're going to hear about that in my next segment, which will be part 3.